Hey, what's going on, everyone? Today we have the opener guide for patch 17.5. We're going to cover all the broken openers, whether you need to be hard forcing something, and pretty much giving you a step-by-step guide on how to play your stage 1 and stage 2. So pretty much openers mean everything because it just sets up your entire game. But let's cover that right now. So first things first, in terms of hard forcing, Stargazer Xayah is like one of the only hard forceable comps because it doesn't require an emblem, unlike other level 8 comps. Doesn't require high rolling super hard like a fast 9, and doesn't require very specific rerolls in order to make work. So if you want to just play one comp every single game, it can be the Stargazer Xayah. In terms of conditional ones, if you have emblems, Space Groove, Dark Stars, or Brawler Yi all work really well. Obviously for Space Groove, you want Space Groove. For Dark Star, you want Dark Star. But Brawler Yi, you could use a lot of different stuff on Yi. Brawler's gonna be the best one, but you could also use Marauder emblem. You could put that on Kindred. And then there are also some like mediocre options that you can use, such as like Challenger or Nova. Not as good as Brawler or Marauder, but whenever you take like the random emblem augments, you don't get to choose which emblem you get. So Brawler Yi can make use of like a lot of them, even if they don't really make that much sense. If you're 8+ win streaking, do Fast 9, Vex Fast 9, or Vanguard Fast 9, Anma Cash Out, Stargazer Xayah, or Mech are pretty good options. And of course, it does depend on which item you get from the Anma Cash Out. And then for artifacts, we have Mecha, Brawler Yi, Lulu Reroll, Stargazer Xayah, and then if you have Gnar plus item slams, then the Gnar printer comp's gonna work out pretty well. After that, for rerolls, right now it's really just Lulu reroll. You can do Samira. I don't think Samira is that great without 2 tanky, but we'll talk about 2 tanky a little bit later. In terms of loose streaking, playing Time Breakers or Primordians when you are loose streaking is pretty nice, or Anima, obviously. Play for strong comps in stage 4 like Stargazer Xayah or Corky Riven. On 3-2, get some form of directions, stuff like emblems, artifacts, or anything that like hard forces you into a comp on stage 3 is going to be one way to like fix a lose streak. So just keep that in mind as you are playing. And right now, like the patch is going to be AD, attack damage focused, but honestly there are a lot of AP options. It's not like one or the other in this patch. It's actually a pretty good mix, but pretty much like the high roll comps, like the level 9 comps are AP, but everything else is mainly going to be AD. But let's go into some of the augments. So Expedition, pretty good one to play with. You get like Radiant items, so Lissandra reroll is going to be really good for this. Same with Lulu reroll. Pretty much any reroll comp makes pretty good use of Radiant items. Same for Mecha. Like a Radiant Gargoyle on your Mighty Mech is going to be absolutely devastating. Pretty much will never die. Prismatic Ticket, Lulu reroll, or any other reroll comp. The emblem augments, these are going to be great to just give you direction. The only one I would say to be careful of is going to be Legion of Threes. This one works out really well if you have like a random 3 cost at the start of the game because it buffs your units with emblems and 3 cost units. So if you only have an emblem that you got from Legion of Threes, not going to be as good as, let's say, having a 3 cost unit and an emblem. So that way you could put an emblem on someone else, play your other 3 costs, and both units get buffed in stage 2. Pretty nice way to kind of streak a little bit. Pretty much the guide on taking these augments though is going to be dependent on your board. If you already have good direction, like let's say you have, I don't know, like 3 Space Groove units and you're like, okay, I'm doing Space Groove start. You might not want to take branching out because that way you don't have to risk getting something completely unrelated. Like let's say you have a great Space Groove start and then you get Meeple emblem, like what are you gonna do? Well, you have to go Meeple. If you have like perfect items for some reroll comp and you wanna go that reroll comp, again, do not take branching out. However, if you just have like some random 2-star units, don't really synergize with each other, then taking branching out or spreading roots or trait tree gonna be pretty good because you're gonna get something that's gonna be playable with your board, chances are, and you could also just lean into it a bit harder. Next up we have is Portable Forge and Living Forge. These are really good augments, but it depends on what the relationships are. If you go to teamfight.lol, you go to the item section and then you go to artifacts, you can kind of see some of the champions that all of these are good on. Like obviously the tank ones are pretty flexible. These are going to be the most played, but they pretty much work on every tank. But you could always sort by average placement and like click some drop downs and stuff. Like Titanic Hydra works really well on Master Yi, 3.67 average when you do get that combo off. But you could do this for pretty much anything. So let's say like Lichbane. Lichbane's a weird one. This one is after you cast, your next auto attack deals some damage. And that one's pretty good, right? But it's a bit weird to play around with. No other item in the game kind of does that. So in this case, you might want to do some data checks and realize like, oh, pretty much just played in Fast 9 comps or in some Milio comps. And like other users, they can use them, but not that great. So probably don't take this one unless you know you're going Fast 9 already. If you look at something like Flicker Blades, this one, gonna be all the attack speed champs that like this, Vex, Xayah, Kindred. things like that. So that's what you kind of have to look out for when you are doing data checks for artifact items, but obviously they are very useful. There are some ones that are just like super, super broken combos. For example, I think like Dawncore Lulu or something like that is really good. Yeah, like 3.92, very respectable stuff there. Misfortune, it's working pretty well on also. Lots of weird like situational things you could do with artifact items, but pretty much that's one way to get direction because you just hard force whatever comp you get. And overall, it's just like a pretty decent way to work out your game. Worth the wait, this one I like a lot. There aren't too many bad options. Obviously, you want like Lissandra or Cho'Gath to do one of the reroll comps. Talon can be pretty good too. Twisted Fate, pretty nice also because when you get him 3-star, you get a lot of gold when he rolls 9s. But even if you get one of the bad worth the waits, you could still use them to stabilize your board early and kind of win streak with, and also like be pretty strong on stage 3. Like, you don't have to super win streak with it, but just having like a 3-star 1 cost pretty much guaranteed sometime in stage 3 just allows you to save a lot of life. And then worst case scenario, it's just getting 1 gold every single turn. You don't have to 4-star the unit that you get. You don't even have to play them in your endgame board. Sometimes just using it for 1 gold a turn is good enough. And if you happen to get something good, you could go ahead and play some comp that's built around that. Next up we have is Worth the Wait 2. Not as good as Worth the Wait 1 in my opinion, but right now there are better options compared to previous patches. For example, if you get Gnar, absolutely disgusting. I'm pretty sure you could get like a 4-star Gnar because you have Worth the Wait plus the Meeple printing at 7 Meeple. So that's obviously by far the best one. After that, like Pantheon and Milio, these 2 units just work really well in a bunch of different comps. Like Pantheon works well with any Riven comp, works really well in Space Groove with the Nami for Replicator. Milio gonna work really well in the Corki comps, and also just a solid carry on his own. Other stuff that's good for 2 cost, Pyke really good for win streaking, Gwen really good for win streaking. Honestly, some solid options here. You really just don't want a Kali. That's going to be the worst one because she's more of like a support unit, even though she's a damage unit. She's mainly played a lot because of her traits. She is going to be a Nova and Marauder, so Marauder works out really well because if you ever play Fiora as a 5 cost, like she's just one of the strongest carries in the game. And then obviously for Nova, she has one of the best effects, which is giving your units precision, which is critical strike on their ability. And yeah, that makes her super, super strong. But you don't want her from Worth the Wait because you just, like, honestly, the difference between 1-star and 2-star Akali, you're not going to feel the difference. So 1-star versus 3-star Akali, probably also not going to feel that much of a difference either. Urf and Urf's Gambit, these are just other emblem augments that you can kind of play around with. Anma Commander, this one's good if you full open. And when you full open, you get the Anma cash outs, go into the comps we talked about earlier. Pop quiz, what are they? Okay, pencils down, you have to put your answer in. It's gonna be stuff like the mecha comp or anything that could use some of those super items, maybe a reroll comp, maybe some random fast 9 comp. Lots of things you could do there. Sometimes you have to like use the unit that you get from the Anma cash out. Calculated loss, this one's really good for opening into a reroll comp. So Lulu reroll is gonna be a great one for that. 2 tanky Samira is gonna be one of the S tier comps out there. I only like playing Samira in 2 tanky. I don't like playing Samira alone, but yeah, in the 2 tanky comp, very devastating. No scout, no pivot. Darkstar Lissandra going to be the premier 1-star reroll comp. So that one's kind of a no-brainer. Early learnings. This one, you could do like a Leona Teemo or Ezreal Cho'Gath, but pretty much any 1-cost reroll comp works here. Early learnings is a one that you gain AD and AP and it increases after every player combat, and 1-cost champions gain double, so that's really, really nice for any 1-cost reroll. Solo plating, really good on mecha. And then if you don't have any direction at all on augments, expected, unexpectedness, and birthday reunion are great ways to kind of manufacture some direction for your team comp. Next, I want to talk about some of the econ augments, because econ augments in general, they are going to be very strong. Like this whole set, they've been very strong, but I haven't really talked about them up here because these are more like the niche examples. But pretty much econ augments, they can come in the form of like gold, units, rerolls, or XP. Those are the 4 things we can get econ from. But you have to take advantage of each of them in different ways. For example, gold is really good if you're loose streaking because gold gives you interest. Out of all the econ augments, gold augments give you like quote unquote the least amount of gold, or like equivalent gold, because gold is flexible. You could use it on anything. You could use gold to buy units, you could use it to make interest, you could use it on rerolls, you could use it to buy XP. You could do everything you want with gold. It's like having cash, right? Like cash is king, you could do anything with it. So that's why gold gives like the least amount of quote unquote value, but that value comes in the flexibility. So that's how they are kind of balanced with everything else. But whenever you get raw gold, you want to use it to kind of make interest and then find a time to spike later on in the game. For the next category, which is units. So Units can actually provide a lot of tempo. A lot of people, they take those augments just for the gold and then sell everything. That's not the way you should be using them all the time. Sometimes you have to make use of the units that the game gives you because that's where the value in these are. So if you take a unit augment, see if anything fits your board. Don't just sell it automatically to make like 20 gold or whatever, because more often than not, there are some things there that can really boost up your team. Also, some of the weird ones, such as like Warpath, this one you have to actually win streak with. So this one gives you a random 2-star 2 cost, and then every number of wins you get a bunch of rewards. Like these, you have to play more aggressively when you get them. And despite giving like econ, quote unquote, they are good augments to kind of win streak with and take advantage of weaker games. Next up, we have our rerolls. Rerolls are great gold value because all the reroll augments give a lot of rerolls. So obviously take these when you have some comp you want to go for, where you want a 3-star unit, but also don't be afraid to take these if you're doing a fast state. Like 99% of the time, you're going to be taking a reroll augment when you are rerolling. Big surprise, right? But there are other cases where using rerolls when you're doing like a fast 8 can be very useful as well. Like for example, on stage 2, like obviously only take reroll augment if you want to go a reroll comp. But in stage 3, if you get something like rolling for days and you're doing a fast 8, and let's say all the other augment choices you got were like complete garbage, you can instead use those rerolls right away during stage 3 to kind of keep up a win streak. You also don't have to use all the rerolls. You could use maybe like 3 of them and it's free, right, from the augment. That way you can hit some 2-stars in stage 3, and then by the time you get to stage 4 and level 8, you'll still have a bunch of free rerolls banked up and you can use them at your desired rolling point. What I don't recommend if you're doing a fast 8, taking something like rolling for days, is saving all the rerolls for level 8, because that means you just played like a whole stage without an augment, and had you taken like an XP augment or a gold augment, you could have actually been using that gold the whole time compared to the reroll one where you just skipped a whole stage of augment value. So for example, instead of rolling for days, if you got, I don't know, like Slammin' Plus, that's an XP augment you can get. Slammin' Plus allows you to level up to level 7 faster on stage 3-5. So it's a lot more useful than taking rerolls that you're never going to use until stage 4. So that's kind of like the difference you need to pay attention to when you are playing with that. Next up, we have our EXP augments, and XP augments are going to be some of the strongest in my opinion, because this is just like pure value. I think in terms of like raw value, like total value or whatever, XP probably gives some of the most, because if you're playing fast 8, fast 9, you're always going to need to level up. And most of these give like 2 XP per turn, plus some sort of other bonus. Like Slammin', it gives you gold at the start when you take it, and then it gives you 2 XP every turn. There's some that even give you 3 XP, like Clear Mind and Cluttered Mind. Both of these give you 3 XP every turn, so those can give like a ton of value. But whenever you do take XP augments, keep in mind like you're probably not going to go on a full win streak unless you're super lucky. These are mainly taken in the early game to kind of spike later on in the game. Next, let's go into how to decide an opener. So there's going to be like win streaking, lose streaking, things like that. But what unit should you be kind of keeping track of? And what item should you be slamming? So items, like you kind of want to be a little bit flexible. It's also very meta dependent. I change this item tier list pretty often. It's a little bit stylistic dependent also, like it depends on what comps you like to play. So for example, if you go all the way to the top and you look at all these random comps that can be played, if you don't play one of them, like the tier list isn't going to be like perfectly aligned to what you want to do. But in general, most of these items that I list out, they are like generally pretty flexible, or they like fit really, really well into the meta, or they help you win streak a bunch. For example, like in the S tier, we could take a look at items like Last Whisper and Even Shroud. Are these the best items in the early game? No way. Since we're in an AD meta, you're probably going to build these items anyway, so if you get offered these components, you might as well just slam it and go one of those comps. You'll get some pretty decent value in the early game. Like they're still okay early game, right? But in the late game, you just don't have to worry about getting Armor Shred anymore. Same thing with Protector's Vow. Is it the best early game item? No, but half the comps in the game play Nunu. So if you play Nunu, it's his best in slot item. You get some value from the tank item early game, transfer it to Nunu later. Let's look at another item, maybe like Death Cap or Deathblade. Are these items best in slots? On some units, yes. On a lot of units, no. But in the early game, they give a lot of stat value. So if you ever get offered these, like if you take some component augment early game, these will help you win streak a bunch. Like honestly, you don't really have to pay attention too much to this tier list, because you really only get offered so many items at the start of the game unless you also take an item augment. But pretty much if you have anything slammable, try to slam it. Like in the S, A, or B tier, if you have something buildable there and it makes any bit sense with whatever units you have on your board, you most likely are just gonna build it. The only one I would avoid is like the C tier. These items are either like not that prevalent in the meta, or they're not that flexible later on in the game, or they just don't provide that much power in the early game. Those are kind of the reasons why these are down here. Not saying they're bad items, definitely they are not. For example, Bloodthirster and Titan's Resolve, these two items are extremely good on Riven, and something like Nashor's Tooth is extremely good on Nami. But would I build these items first compared to some of the other items up here? Probably not. For example, Nashor's Tooth, there's some comps that want Jeweled Gauntlet, double Nashor's Tooth. But if you build Nashor's Tooth in stage 2, we have to read Nashor's Tooth first. Nashor's Tooth really only gets value when your unit critically strikes. And if they don't have Jeweled Gauntlet already built, you're not going to make use of like part of the effect from Nashor's Tooth, which is getting mana on critical strikes. So you're wasting part of the item when you build this early. But there are going to be some games where you could build both Nashor's and Jeweled Gauntlet on stage 2. In which case, congratulations, build both of these and you're gonna have a great time. But you may have noticed a pattern already. A lot of the S and A tier items that I have listed out here, a lot of these items can stand on their own. They don't need to be like comboed with anything. So that's kind of how this is set up as well, because in the early game, you can only really build one item, because most games you get like 3 components and you're like, what do I build? When you only have one item, it's kind of tough, right? Sometimes you get dropped more. Sometimes they drop like 5 from the neutral rounds, but in those cases, you can get a little bit more fancy. But let's talk about win streaking now. Like, what do we want to do when we win streak? You want strong item slam on a 2-star unit. You want upgrades that are not your carry also. So like both your carry and the complementary units should be upgraded. You want an item or combat augment to get more power on your board. And you also need to make sure to scout a bunch. Comps to play are going to be like Brawler Yi, Vexfast 9, Acel Flex, Stargazer Zaya, and Nar Printer comp. Units on stage 1 for 1 cost, 2 cost, and 3 cost. This is like probably the most important section of this video. Stuff like Primordian is pretty useful early game, because if you get them 2-star, they have pretty solid power in stage 2, but you could also get econ from them. And it also helps you upgrade the rest of your board. So these are great units to kind of look out for. Rogues are still really good, so both Briar and Talon have tons of value there. Any of the 1-cost reroll comp units are definitely usable as well. You don't even have to reroll with them. You could just use them as early game item holders, and then the rest are kind of like generic tanks or like some of the lower tier damage units. They're not bad by any means. Like, you could still kind of hold on to them, but they're definitely better things to look out for. In the 2 costs, we have Pantheon and Milio. Timebreaker is just so valuable because, again, you could win streak with Timebreaker active and get a bunch of XP if possible. They're also just like great units that fit in a lot of different comps. For example, Pantheon is a 3-trait unit, so you could play him with a lot of different stuff out there. Like, he's a brawler, so you could play him with Rek'Sai or Cho'Gath. Replicator can be played with Lissandra, who's a pretty solid unit right now. Nar's just good in general. If you have any attack damage items on him, you could either play him and play the 3-star Nar comp, or you could just use him as an attack damage item holder. What's great about Nar is that he holds both Rage Blade, Infinity Edge, and Death Blade, and all 3 of those items, normally they're not really built together that much, but because Nar can hold all 3 of them, he can be used to pivot into any attack damage comp in the game. Then Pyke is still really good. He's great at like just scamming wins in stage 2. He falls off pretty hard in stage 3. So if you do play Pyke in stage 2 and you're like, hey, I'm winning every round, let me try to continue my win streak in stage 3. Be a little bit careful because Pyke gets much weaker when there are more units on the board. So either swap him out or like make sure your board is so strong overwhelmingly that whatever the enemy teams have, they can't really play around it. But let's move on into the 3 costs right now. Misfortune is absolutely dominating right now, and Illaoi just has always been one of the best 3-cost tanks. But Misfortune's really good because she could choose any trait she wants. After that, Urgot and Kai'Sa are pretty good. Urgot's just got great traits. Bruiser, Marauder. So a lot of the melee damage units are pretty good, and also Ghost is 2 range as well. Urgot is 2 range because they're pretty resilient and they also deal decent amount of damage. So you get like kind of like a 2-in-1 special. Kai'Sa is really good because Darkstar is pretty solid. You could do like Kai'Sa plus Cho'Gath, and she's just like a very good carry unit with the other rogues. So you can play like Briar, Talon, or Gwen with her, and like all those units just work out fantastically. She's also a great AD item holder. You could build like IE on her. She could also build Shojin, and then you could go into any direction with Shojin because Shojin can work in both AD and AP comps. You just really need a casting unit. B tier's pretty solid still. Like, you don't like completely build a team around them, but they can be good in certain ways. And then C tiers, these are still okay too. They're not like the best things ever by any means, but if you have the right start for them, they can be used pretty often still. Next we have is lose streaking. So lose streaking, it still doesn't feel that great. My last video, I also said lose streaking didn't feel that great in that other patch, but I think in this new patch, it still doesn't feel that great. It's really only good if you could do anima cash outs, but even then, anima cash outs I feel like could be a tiny bit stronger. I feel like the risk reward of them is just decent. It's not anything that great. And if you compete with another anima player, one of you guys are going to get grief. So you just have a 50% chance to lose the game on the spot. And then even if you do hit, you're not guaranteed to win. I mean, if you get a good anima cash out, you're probably guaranteed at the very, very, very minimum, like top 3. But you're not guaranteed first place. So if you're taking like a 50% chance of getting last place and then like 50% chance of getting 3rd or better, not the best trade-off, right? Obviously, these numbers are just like estimates. They're not like exact sciences by any means, but that's kind of what I'm getting at here. But you're still gonna do anima if you get it though, and that's probably the best thing to do from lose streaking. Apart from that, like getting econ augments with an econ god, you can do like pretty solid fast 8 or fast 9 with it, or stabilize with some reroll comp in stage 3, but you pretty much only want to lose streak if you are forced to. So that's like if you have no upgrades and no direction. But yeah, pretty much lose streaking is never really ideal right now, but worst case scenario, you do get better items because of the comeback mechanic. So when you do contest comps with other people later on in the game, it's not going to be like as bad because you should at least have good items. But pretty much on the website, bunnymuffins.lol/openers, you could check out some of the generic openers we have out here for like AD, AP, and kind of like mixed boards. I also give you some recommended comps to play from these comps. So overall, pretty useful stuff. You don't have to play every single one of these, and there obviously are variations to each, but these are pretty good boards to kind of like start off with to know how to build around certain teams. But just to sum up at the top again, like for some of the broken stuff, it's like really, if you get like a OP reroll augment, just go Lulu. If you get emblems, and emblems are like, I think some of the strongest starts in the game right now, Space Groove, Darkstar, Brawler Yi, gonna be very good options. If you're like super win streaking, any of the fast 9s, you pretty much just auto top 2. And if you got nothing else to do in life, just like hard force Stargazer Zaya because you got no direction from anything else. But that's pretty much like the short guide of it if I had to put it in like 2 sentences. But that's kind of going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. BunnyMuffins.lol/openers for the full guide, and I hope to see you all in the next one.